Good morning and welcome to Algebra 1. This is Friday, May 1st. Today I'm just going to go over the prompt that I had given you for homework through the video last night. And then I'm going to go over one more example of how we graph from Vertex Form. Incidentally, in honor of College and Career Week, I'm wearing my Boston University t-shirt, my bachelor's degree school. All right, so the prompt I gave you was y equals negative, parenthesis, x plus 2, quantity squared plus 3. What I told you we should do is make a t-table that's centered on the vertex. In vertex form, the vertex is actually shown to you. It is the opposite of this number right here. So it's negative 2, and it is this number right here, 3, because that's the vertex of the parabola. So when we make our t-table, which is usually 5 coordinates, where we choose the inputs, this is going to be in the middle. If it's in the middle, we will see symmetry, which we should see because it's a parabola, which will have symmetry. When you graph them, if you're not creating a U shape this way, or an arch, something's wrong, because that's what a parabola is supposed to look like. Now, when you're choosing the rest of your inputs, you're going to go one away. So this is negative 2. I'm going to go negative 3, negative 4 up here, and then negative 1, 0 down there. We're creating this 5-input t-table. To find the outputs, you're doing the math. Be very careful when you're inputting these values. It's the only issue you're going to have is the order of operations. So when I input a negative 4, I'm going to say y equals negative parenthesis, negative 4 plus 2, close parenthesis squared, plus 3. When you're doing the math, remember the order of operations. PEMDAS, parentheses first. All right, so in the parentheses, I've got negative 4 plus 2, which is negative 2. And I'm going to write the rest of the problem. Didn't touch it yet. After parentheses in PEMDAS comes the E for exponent. That negative 2 right there, it has to get squared. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. So I have y equals negative, parentheses, 4 plus 3. Remember, that negative part has not been touched. Now that I've done the squaring, I have the M, multiplication, PEMDAS, multiplication or division, and finally addition or subtraction. Negative times 4 is negative 4. And now finally, there's just an addition to do. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. And that's the output for an input of negative 4. Just be careful. If you use the calculator with parentheses, you should also get the right answer. But this is how we actually do the work. I'll plug in a negative 3 as well. I'll do it over here. So y equals negative, parenthesis, negative 3 plus 2 squared plus 3. Again, parentheses are first. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. Squared plus 3. The exponent acts on the negative 1. And negative 1 squared is positive 1. This negative sign stays there, but negative 1 squared is 1. Plus 3. Now it's time for that negative sign to multiply against that positive 1, turning it into negative 1 plus 3. And negative 1 plus 3 is 2. If we've done this correctly, fingers crossed we have, we'll see symmetry for the rest of this table. We should see another 2 and then a negative 1. But rather than just assume everything is perfect, because after all, that's kind of a bold assumption, let us actually do some math to verify what the outputs should be, because again, this is a new skill and we don't want to overreach our confidence here. So y equals negative parenthesis. Now I'm going to plug in negative 1. Negative 1 plus 2, quantity squared plus 3. Again, parentheses first. Negative 1 plus 2 is positive 1 squared plus 3. Positive 1 squared is just still 1 plus 3. Negative times 1 is negative 1 plus 3. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2. We are seeing the symmetry filling out the table, which means we could have pretty good faith that we've been doing it right. But again, rather than have too much confidence, let's just finish this process mathematically by plugging in a 0, easy number to plug in. Y equals negative parentheses 0 plus 2, quantity squared, plus 3. In parentheses, 0 plus 2 is 2, squared plus 3. 2 squared is 4, so negative parentheses 4 plus 3. Negative times 4 is negative 4 plus 3, which is negative 1, which does, of course, fill out the symmetry, and we're happy and we're good. Everything's great. Let's try to just graph it real quick so we can see what the graph should look like. I can see here that my inputs go from negative 4 to 0. So I don't really need much or any of the positive part of the x-axis. The y values have a little bit of negative and a little bit of positive. So this is probably good enough. You don't always have to make your coordinate grid perfectly centered on the origin if those are values that you don't actually need. We're trying to make a good graph for the parabola we've been given. I don't really care about the rest of the x-axis because my x values go from negative 4 to 0 on my graphable window. Negative 4, negative 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, down 1, put a dot there. Negative 3, positive 2. Negative 3, positive 2, up there. Negative 2, positive 3 is up here. And now we find the symmetry. Negative 1, positive 2 is over there. And 0, negative 1 is right there. And we sketch through the parabola. And we've got our answer. Now again, remember we talked about some vocabulary. The vertex is the place where the parabola turns. In this particular parabola, it's at the top there at negative 2, 3. When the parabola has a vertex on top, we call that a maximum. And because the parabola had the opening on top and then arrows down, we say it opens down. It has an area of increasing values before the vertex and decreasing values after the vertex. Again, we read it from left to right. So what's happening as you move up and then as you move down from this particular parabola. Good. One more example for you. Okay. This one's going to use a fraction, which I know you guys all love. Y equals 1/2 parenthesis x minus 1 squared plus 2. All right, so in this parabola, we do have a fraction value in front of the parentheses. It's fine, it's just a fraction. First thing I want to identify is the vertex. So where's my vertex? It's supposed to say minus there, and it does. So 1 is the x value of the vertex. Positive 2 is the y value of the vertex. It's at 1, 2. So I make my t-table, and the middle coordinate will be the vertex, 1, 2. I'm going to choose 2 points that are lower than the vertex and then 2 points that are higher. So 1 is here, so 0 and negative 1, 2 and 3. And as per usual, we're going to plug them in one at a time to verify we have the right answer. I'll show all the math here for you. Y equals 1/2. Negative 1 minus 1 squared plus 2. That's 1/2 times negative 2 squared plus 2. Negative 2 squared is positive 4 plus 2. Half of 4 is 2 plus 2. The output is 4. Make sense? And we'll do the input of 0 over here. So y equals 1/2 of 0 minus 1 squared plus 2. 0 minus 1 is negative 1 squared plus 2. Negative 1 squared is 1 plus 2. Half of 1 is 1/2 plus 2, which gives you 2.5 as your output. You're going to keep doing this step by step just to make sure that everything's right. It's fine to have decimal answers too. Okay, if you plug in a 2, what is 2 minus 1? 1. What is 1 squared? 1. Oh, it's this problem again, just the other side. 2.5. Plug in a 3. What's 3 minus 1? 2. And what's 2 squared? 4. Hey, wait, it's this problem again. The answer is 4. Well, that was faster once we realized that we don't have to write out the math for each and every option if we do a little quick double check. I have confidence in my answer now. Okay, so I'm going to once again graph it, because this whole section we're doing right now is graphing from vertex form. So if we don't graph it, we're not really meeting the criteria. I need a little bit of negative x, mostly positive. I only need positive y. So let's just do, that. 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's as high as it has to go, and that's pretty much the only window I need here. Negative 1, 4 is way up here. 0, 2.5 is over here. You're just going to go to where 2.5 would approximately be. It's an estimate. It's fine. 1, 2 is over here. 2, 2.5. Turning around now. And 3, 4 is up here. And here is the graph of my parabola. This time, the vertex is the lowest point on the parabola because it opens up. When the vertex is the lowest point, it's called the minimum. That's everything. Area here of decrease to the vertex and then increase after the vertex. We're learning how to interpret the parts of the graph, how to read the equation, how to make the t-table. And again, you can always verify this on Desmos if you don't have a graphing calculator, desmos.com. It allows you to create your own graphable equations. It's really easy to use and it's free. So go ahead and use it if you want to. So far as our work goes, most of you did an adequate job on the IXL BB.3. Well, now it's time for BB.5. Graphing from vertex form, exactly what we've been doing. I'm looking for at least 85% with the ability for extra credit, and it's due on Tuesday. Let's say Tuesday by the end of the day. That's all I've got. If you have questions or issues, please let me know. Send me an email. We can always do individual sessions, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Otherwise, have a wonderful weekend.